Yoni and I were looking to, reimagine what the company, looked like and where it needed to be headquartered. Salt Lake City obviously was on my map. Yoni had never been to Salt Lake, so he came out here, shortly after that Interbike show that you mentioned, and he fell in love instantly.
You think of any other advice or tips?
I would say probably the biggest one when you're coming to a product is know your product well. Invest in your product more than anything else. Don't pay attention to the noise around you. Just make an awesome product that people are going to come to, as opposed to just trying to chase other people or pretend that you have a demand and go after that demand.
We hustled hard, and that hasn't actually stopped at all.
We still hustle.
And it's been a fun ride.
Welcome to Utah Stories. We have launched Faces of Utah magazine here at Salt Life Media. And this is a magazine full of entrepreneur success stories. We've really found and curated a lot of the very best entrepreneur success stories, from folks who do camper vans, to do interior design, to art and antiques and growing vegetable starts to plastic surgery. And one of my favorite stories in this book is that of Magnum E-Bikes. And Jesse Lapin, along with his partner, Yoni, what's your last name, Yoni?
Kayman.
Kayman. They're both here with us today. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you guys have a pretty incredible story, and the story's kind of recounted in the magazine, but I thought we could spend a few minutes. Let's start with when you broke your leg in Israel, and you realized you had a really good friend in Yoni.
Yeah. Like every good story, right? It starts with the origin, and the origin is Yoni and I. Been friends now for over 20 years. The two of us met in New York City. Mm-hmm. We ended up working for the same nonprofit organization. Yoni actually moved to Israel, and so we had a friendship, but it was a long distance friendship. When I was visiting Israel with this organization called Aisha Torah, I was hiking at Masada, which is the Temple Mount up in the hills of Israel. And coming down the hill, I fell down a cliff. I was actually running down this mountain, and I couldn't stop myself as I got to an edge and fell off about a 10 or 12 foot drop, landed right on my right leg, and it collapsed. So the next 2 weeks I was in the hospital. And one of the first people who came to visit me actually was Yoni. And when I got out of the hospital, when they released me, I spent some time with Yoni again. He was there, wheeling me around Old City of Jerusalem, down to the wall to see some of the sights. And we've always been good friends.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds like a bad break too. So you couldn't just come right back to the United States. You had to...
No, I was there in the hospital actually for 2 weeks. It was a compound fracture of both the fibula and the tibia, and yeah.
And how, one thing I notice about partnerships is they tend to be good if you have complementary skill sets. So how would you describe your guys' different skill sets?
Like any good relationship, it's been one built on trust, and it's evolved along the way, especially as we've been in business now for the better part of 10 years. That relationship has evolved, and with it, the responsibilities. And so it's tough to pinpoint, where Yoni sometimes begins and I take over. But, the fact that he's remote and I'm here in Utah has worked really nicely for us over the years. Yoni is complementary to me, though, in a lot of different ways. He's much more organized than I am, and
we complement each other,
yeah.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Definitely.
And I think it would be very difficult to have a partnership if you don't do that. If you both have the same strengths or the same weaknesses, it doesn't really last.
Yeah.
But, our partnership has lasted a long time, and it's been pretty awesome.
That's great.
In the early days, it was, and probably even today. Yoni's skills is in the production, in the back end. He's been going to China for many years and working with overseas suppliers. He has relationships that he's forged for many years that the company and Magnum Bikes relies on. And for me here in the States, a long history of sales and marketing and sales management. Came very naturally that the company needed those things, especially in the early days. So I've always been head of distribution and operations, with Yoni kind of handling our production and finance. So it really has worked quite nicely.
And so, about 10 years you've been in business. How did you recognize that e-bikes would be like a burgeoning growth field, and that would be much more than a fad? Because I think back then people just didn't know if they were going to be like something you buy once and then toss out like other fads. How did you recognize that?
I think we have to turn to Yoni for that one, because he predates me a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, I saw e-bikes come onto the market when I was overseas in Israel in about 2010, and they weren't regulated yet, so it was not really possible to import them. But the moment I saw them, I saw the entire bike market kind of open up to, 90% of the people who are not children or professional bikers, like road bikers or mountain bikers, that never ride bikes anymore, because you can't really ride a bike if you're either a kid or you're like a roadie or mountain biker. Like a regular guy is not, even if you're in decent shape, you're not really riding a bike unless maybe you're up a little bit more. Amsterdam, everybody rides bikes there, but I saw that opportunity. I was like, electric bikes, it's not a motorcycle, it's not a car, it's transportation. It's not only transportation, recreation. It's going to get like everybody that wants to ride a bike but just doesn't feel comfortable back on bikes. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. That was back in 2010. Then I started working for these other companies, bike companies that didn't really have any exposure to electric bikes. And I was like, listen, like, I'll get you the supply, I'll import them under your brand. You have to have this product. And that was overseas in Israel. And then at first, I kind of got met with like, what? Like, no, like, we're in the bicycle industry for the last 30 years. Like, this is weird. This is not a bicycle. It's a motorcycle. It's not a motorcycle.
They couldn't really wrap their heads around it.
No.
Just sort of
you have to have this. Like, this is going to give you a huge clientele base that, like, you don't have right now. And I convinced two big brands overseas in Israel that have been around for like 40 years, that had to allow me to manufacture their electric bikes under their brand. And that was my initial exposure and entry into the market. A while later, I kind of partnered up with somebody who had retail shops in Israel, and then I launched my own brand. And then that was already after a couple of years of doing this and having the supply chain down. And then I realized pretty quickly, I was like, America is very kind of lagging, and that's where we need to be, because that's where the market's gonna open up. And I'm from New York originally, so I know the American market, well, and I saw the opportunity for e-bikes. It was amazing. I mean, at the Interbike show, which was the bike show in Las Vegas at the time, it was, I know your office is a little bit small over here, right? But you can imagine a huge bike show with like a small little green carpet in the corner for e-bikes. And I was like, most people are like, oh, this sucks. And I was like, this is amazing. Because that means that the opportunity is just going to be like wide open.
Blue sky. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think I would look at a place like New York or perhaps Israel too, that's more already biker friendly as being a good markets for e-bikes, because they already have the cycling infrastructure.
Sure. And
you look at Europe, they already have cycling infrastructure. Here we're so car dependent, and we so love our cars. Did you ever think that maybe this wouldn't be an ideal market for e-bikes for that reason?
So I knew it was going to be more recreation than transportation, and that's what it was. It's recreation first, transportation second, but slowly when it hits the masses, by now e-bikes really have hit the masses, they became much more applicable to transportation. When I say recreation first, like the majority of the people that we sold our e-bikes to in the beginning, and even still now, the demographics like over the age of 50, they want to get outside, they want to be healthy, they don't have the stamina to ride a regular bicycle 5 or 10 miles, but you can choose when you're on an e-bike like how much you want to apply yourself. So the fact that it wasn't transportation focused like congested cities in Europe or New York, that wasn't a problem. You know, still there's a huge market of people, and we're actually changing people's lives.
Yeah, you just had to show how fun they are.
Exactly.
Even if you're a little overweight and can't really bike that much.
Exactly.
It's a ton of fun.
There's a renaissance happening too, though. I think for the better part of 10 or 15 years, governments, cities have been pushing for better bike infrastructure around the country.
Yeah.
You can pinpoint the 10 or 15 cities who have always led the way. You know, Minneapolis and Denver, and Salt Lake's never been poor, but we've come a long way over the last 10 years to provide safer, better routes for bikers. That really speak to e-bikes, and e-bikes kind of just perpetuate this already growing movement of people who want to get out and, like Yoni said earlier, get back on a bicycle, because this is how this country is built. It's built around cars, and we'd like to see that change. I think a lot of people would like to see that change. Cyclists and the greater biking industry are helping to pave the way for that change. But you look at our cities and the parking and our homes. 30-40% of our lives are for our cars.
Well, I think you're right. I think it is. I think we're at the beginning of a renaissance if we realize that, because here we live in this bowl-shaped valley. We have some of the worst air quality in the world. And it's because everybody wants to drive their car everywhere. And if people would just get on an e-bike for those 3 to 5 mile travels, to the grocery store, to the post office, the library, maybe to their work, that could absolutely revolutionize our transportation system. And I think I drive my little girl to school every day. That's nice. Every day she wakes up early enough, we go on the e-bike. And she absolutely loves it. I mean, and then if I don't pick her up on the e-bike, she's like, "What's going on, Dad? Come on." I want to go on.
They say that a city should be experienced on a bike, walking or on two legs. It's just not reasonable that you should be able to, live your life within the city. And when you're driving, you're going too fast to really, appreciate what's around you. When you're on a bike, and
it's like this 2,500-pound piece of metal and plastic we carry around with us just to go to the grocery store a couple miles away. It really doesn't make sense. And I think it wasn't until I visited Europe in my 20s on a bike that I realized what proper bicycle infrastructure looks like and how awesome it is to just get around on a bike and park out in front of a store and go right in rather than try to find a parking spot. And it's just like we kind of just need to change our mindset about how we get around, I think, in the United States, because it's the expense factor is another big thing. It's like we put so much money into our cars and into buying gas and insurance and upkeep. And so is that part of your guys' mission to change it from just recreation to transportation?
It is, and this is where kind of the origin story kind of comes back into play when Yoni and I were looking to, reimagine what the company, looked like and where it needed to be headquartered. Salt Lake City obviously was on my map. I grew up here, and I know all about Salt Lake's, long love affair with the outdoor industry and technology, and and e-bikes seem to meet both of those qualifiers. Yoni had never been to Salt Lake, so he came out here shortly after that Interbike show that he mentioned, and he fell in love instantly. He saw those mountains, I think, the minute he touched down and said, "Okay, I get it." All those conversations over the phone, nothing more needs to be said. Like he understood that like Salt Lake was a special spot, and then when we started talking about the air quality issues and how much of an impact we could make doing what we love to do, it just really fit. And so, we've been here now for 10 years, and we're so happy we are.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's wasteful. I think a lot of the way U.S., the people in the U.S. move around is very wasteful. I think, most people, almost every car in the street has like one person in it. Mm-hmm. And especially here, there's very big cars.
Yeah.
And even if you just take a small percentage of your transportation, you cut that out and use an e-bike, so you don't have to get rid of your car, because that's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. But if you take 10% of your transportation and you use an e-bike for that, and then everyone around you is doing that, like it will make a huge difference, massive, bigger than we could even imagine.
Yeah, we talk about our biggest problems in Utah are affordable housing and another huge problem is our air quality. If you are a young person in your 20s and you have to buy a car and you have to have a garage and you want to live downtown, we're finding less and less affordable housing. If you take that garage and that car out of the equation and have an e-bike instead, that could be a big chunk of solving affordable housing. And
Could be.
I think
city living. Yeah, I mean, if you have to add a car in a garage like you're saying, and getting around the city, it's definitely doable. And Salt Lake has great infrastructure for biking. They already do. They've invested a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they were going to put a big green corridor around the city, and they want to do more with the Jordan River trails, I guess. And that's my favorite trail, is the Jordan River Trail that goes basically all along the Wasatch Front from Provo to Logan. And yeah, it's like we're starting to get there, it seems like. But back to more of your story. So you kind of figured out how to deal and gain relationships with manufacturers in China for these other companies before you did for Magnum.
Yeah,
Well,
I had my own company that I was actually manufacturing for other brands. And then, that supply chain experience over a couple of years, I put together.
How did you figure that out? Did you just go there and start talking to people?
I mean, look, China's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit different.
You
But I was
Chinese?
I do not. I could say how much does this cost, or it's too expensive, give me a discount.
That's too much.
That's like all I need.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, now we have an office in China, so and we have some employees here that actually speak Chinese as well. But I don't speak Chinese. I mean, I just kind of put that goal in front of me, and I said, listen, I have to find a supply chain for this because I love this product. And I did whatever it took, researching online, then flying out to China, going to the trade shows, going from there, selecting certain potential suppliers, going down to their factories, trying to talk to them and communicate with them, even though you don't really speak the same language or have the same culture, in any way.
That just seems really daunting. Like, how do you just...
It's exciting if you like it.
Yeah.
It's very new, very different.
And they're kind of in the bike world already, is most of the manufacturers you partner with.
So it's actually interesting. You're right. It's interesting in China. It doesn't really work that way. Like, the first factory that I went to was a cable manufacturer, and they also made motorcycles. So what's the connection, right? But they were making all the Belkin cables, and they were making a whole bunch of different products. But then because of their electric motorcycle manufacturing, they decided, okay, we can now make e-bikes to export. Now, the truth is they couldn't, right? but
they said they could.
They said they could, exactly. So it's very interesting how they decide and they open up and they're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. They make a project and we're going to be now an e-bike manufacturer, And they do need people like us, manufacturers that actually know the product and know the demand outside to kind of tell them. It's kind of a microcosm of us as a manufacturer and how we work with the retail shops that we work with. And they are customer facing, so they're kind of giving us feedback of what the customers need and want. And we learn from that, and we then procure the product that they need. So it's like a much larger kind of,
Yeah, you got a feedback loop built in, and that's interesting. And I suppose you look at manufacturing today, and I did a big story on Cool, which is an big outdoor retail brand in Utah.
Know those guys. They're good.
Yeah, really cool guys.
Great.
And
No pun intended.
Kevin, yeah, and he's just, I mean, obviously in China, they have this workforce and they have these factories that are equipped to build all sorts of different products that are going to be going to the United States. And so it's just the supply chain is set up that way. Do you ever see a way that it would be possible to do manufacturing in the United States in the next 5 years, or is it just not economically feasible?
Well, a couple of things. It's not just about the economy, the economics of it. Okay, it's a big part of it. I would say is are there Let's start with the actual, logistics of it. Are there employees in the U.S. who want to be factory workers? And if there are, like, how many of them are there, and where do you find them?
Yeah.
And please introduce them to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very tough because the U.S. is a different type of economy. It's a very service-based economy, and the bar is set much higher than, you know, the economy in China, where these factory workers, you know, their wages have improved since, you know, I started, you know, back in 2011, but it's still not the type of work that's easy to find employees for. There are manufacturers here. I'm not saying that there aren't, but that's one thing. The second thing, I think the government doesn't really support, have the same type of programming and support for U.S. manufacturers, at least definitely not in our industry, that they do in China. So in China, the government actually sponsors and supports these factories because they want to support the economy and support job creation. And I think here, I don't know that that's such a top priority.
Well, it's like, I mean, when Trump was going around saying, I'm going to bring back the jobs to the Rust Belt and we're going to have the factories open again, I think it's exactly like you just said, but who wants to take these jobs? Like, are there all these people who are just already lining up, like wanting to work in a factory? So if these tariffs go through, which who knows if they will or won't, will that dramatically impact your business?
Well, the tariffs have gone through.
Yeah, the tariffs have gone
on
through.
e-bikes.
Oh, really? Well, isn't he proposing even more tariffs on? Or
I don't think it's on e-bikes right now. I'm not entirely sure that, you know, that would be I think on electric vehicles. I think China's a leader in electric vehicles, and obviously, you know, the president probably wants to protect U.S. interests over there. You know, what happens with the tariffs, from what I've seen, is that the Chinese, and the same thing is true for Europe, by the way. Europe proposed, or imposed, I should say, an anti-dumping tax to protect the bike manufacturers in Europe. So the bicycle manufacturer in China just opened up shop somewhere else. It's the same Chinese company, but now in Vietnam or, you know, Taiwan or, you know, some other...
wow, they just move where
Eastern,
the tariff is not.
Exactly. And it's the same owners, same people. They even, like, you know... So it's a little bit of a whack-a-mole game, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting.
You got to adapt. We're pretty good at
Which they
adapting.
can do because there's no real competition here, you know, in the U.S. They're not, you know, unlike in Europe, they're not taking jobs or intellectual property away from American companies. The greater bike industry at large for you know, the better part of the last 100 years has you know, it's been a long time since bikes have been manufactured in the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah.
The big names that everybody knows, Trek and Specialized and Giant, you know, all are happening, you know, all that manufacturing is happening in China. I think Giant's the only one that, you know, actually manufactures in Taiwan.
They moved to Vietnam as well. But,
but
they're the same players, you know, different hats.
And so if for some reason there was this big tariff put on on Chinese bikes or Chinese bikes coming from China into the United States, they could just move their factory to Vietnam.
They already did. We already have, you know, a big part of our production being done overseas in Vietnam. It's a Vietnamese company, you know, with Vietnamese employees, but the ownership and the intellectual property and the knowledge and the know-how and all the parts that are being manufactured in China still.
Is there a point where you think that certain, like, manufacturing could happen here in the United States that's perhaps like the batteries or the electrical components or the chips or something like that?
So I'll tell you, when the first implemented, the first stage of the tariff came into effect, we decided that we were going to manufacture or set up an assembly line for our own scooters. There's like kick scooters, you know, two-wheel scooters, kind of like the Lime and Bird scooters that you see in the street, but we were selling them. This was before Lime and Bird. And we imported all of the parts, and then we set up an assembly line in downtown Salt Lake, you know, and we were able to crank out a couple hundred. But then what happened was that the tariff was extended to the parts.
Oh, really?
So, like, somebody wasn't thinking, you know, about manufacturing in the U.S. They were just more thinking of, like, okay, how do we stick it to China? You know, it wasn't like, okay, let's get people to assemble. The assembly process definitely could happen here, and I think it would happen on a higher level. in some cases, obviously if you have the right people, but as far as the quality control, it could happen on a higher level. The battery manufacturing definitely could happen here, especially with, you know, Tesla's gigawatt factory and a lot of cells that are being manufactured here for electric vehicles. They could easily be, you know, used as well for e-bikes, but the government has to decide, like, this is what we want, and let's think it through.
Yeah. It's because it seems to me like if your industry piggybacks off the electric vehicle industry and you can, I don't know, assemble and use some of the same components they're already using and that they're really bolstering, that could really probably drive the price of batteries down and components and maybe bring costs down so everybody has an e-bike and everybody's using it. Do you see that?
It'll be nice. I mean, the batteries, yes. No other components really. Frame manufacturing and all the other electrical components. They have such an industry that's set up for so many years in China that like it's really going to be hard to move everything. And
all the name brand components, you know, Tektro, and you know, for the brakes, and you know, Suntour for the, you know, for the suspension, and
everything.
You know, Shimano's for the gears. Yeah, they all are, you know, Chinese based manufacturing and plants overseas. So
and they have massive facilities already set up with the economies of scale,
you know,
and
dozens of years, and it would be really, you know, a big lift to expect, you know, our country to bring all of those different components, because you know, a bike is is kind of like the cars. It's components sourced from all over the place. So maybe the tires are coming from Germany, or maybe the brakes are coming from Taiwan. But I think there's more we can do. I think we agree on that, and we're behind that. Like Yoni said, I think in some ways we pioneered that, but it's a heavy lift and it's a long road.
Yeah, as far as your expansion in the United States, you guys somewhat recently got into all the Costcos, and that's been a really great thing for your business. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
It's been a fantastic thing for our business, and it's something that I think, deliberated on for some time, you know, whether or not we wanted to have a bike get into a big box, you know, distributor. Costco is the perfect one for us, and for a number of reasons has worked really well, you know, according to plan. Costco is a trusted, you know, retailer here in the U.S. You know, even their terminologies for customers, their members, and their facilities, you know, their warehouses are a little bit different than conventional retail. But people who shop at Costco know that they can trust the quality. They have a long, you know, history of bringing only top quality, you know, top brands in. Magnum had to undergo some rigorous quality control testing and, you know, company vetting to make sure that we were the right partner for them. So it was a long road. It took a couple of years to actually facilitate this. But yeah, this year was our first year that we actually launched in just about half of the stores around. And Costco has, you know, 660 warehouse stores, and the bike sold out quickly. And then we brought more in the fall, and they sold out as well. So we're grateful for the Costco partnership, but people know that if it's at Costco, because of the return policy and because of Costco's history of bringing, you know, one product in each of their departments in, you're not going to see multiple e-bikes. You know, they make sure it's the best one. So it's been great for our brand and great for our our customers too.
And how many SKUs, how many different models did you give to Costco?
Just one model, 2 different colors. We ended up doing a second one later on this year that was for e-commerce only online. But that's kind of, like I said, Costco keeps it simple.
Yeah, that's cool. And here in Utah, you've got a retail store in Park City and one in Salt Lake, and you're opening one in Trolley Square.
Yeah, we've our retail expansion has kind of grown over the last couple of years. We now have actually stores in a couple of different states as well. We're in Scottsdale, in Phoenix, and we're in Daytona in Florida. So here in Salt Lake, obviously, is you know, being where the company is headquartered. We've seen some of the best expansion here. We're moving our store down on State Street, where we've been for the better part of 10 years, to Trolley Square. So our downtown State Street location will now be at Trolley Square in the spring of 2025. And then as we are relocating our headquarters into kind of just around here in the Mill Creek area, we'll be at Brickyard. So Brickyard's going to have another retail shop, more focused on some of our
Factory outlet.
factory outlets.
liquidation.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then we have shops in Park City, St. George, and
Yeah, so we have three shops right now in Utah. St. George, Salt Lake, and Park City, and we're gonna be at 4 with the Brickyard location.
Nice. I'd imagine the volume of production is that hard to keep up with, that now that you got Costco? Was that like, did you have to retool all of your thinking and the logistics back in the factories to make that happen?
I'll tell you the truth. We in 2021, when after like the first year to 2 years of COVID, we ramped up production significantly. So we were very used to and capable of producing high volumes. And in 2022, it started tapering off, and 2023 even further. But so when we got Costco, like the volume that Costco is doing is not more than what we're used to doing. It's just that all of a sudden we have this, big outlet with one product, and it actually makes it much more simple to produce because it's really just one SKU. Maybe 2 different colorways, but like one SKU in mass, and Costco has very specific requirements as far as, the packaging and as far as the safety features and so on.
Do they require that you can't have more than 30% of your overall sales be from them? Is that
They recommend, I believe it's like 50%. That it shouldn't be. They don't want to be. And yes, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I've got a friend who
Because-
works there, and he said sometimes they discontinue you as a producer if your sales
Are entirely
overall,
focused
yeah,
on
mostly
Costco.
Costco.
It shouldn't be. It's not
I
healthy
think
for any
Costco always
business.
appreciated
Yeah.
that we were a well-rounded omni-channel, organization with retail, with online e-commerce, with heavy. We call it IBD, which stands for Independent Bike Dealer Business, and that was attractive to them. I think I don't know if and the buyers have been great to work with. They've coached us along the way of what Costco's expectations were, and made sure that this is a relationship that's built with a foundation to last.
Yeah. Oh, we love Costco, man. We get so much stuff there.
Yeah,
right.
It's
We
just
all
the
do.
return policy, the quality of the
Quality,
products, the staff is all
the price
happy.
is good. Like their margins are slim. They don't increase the price for their consumers. They just like to serve their members.
Yeah.
And we love that.
Yeah, the members are getting a great deal on a bike. Costco, is not in it to make a huge margin. They never have been. They actually won't on any of their SKUs within any of their departments. It's about the membership. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around.
Yeah. I know you guys are limited time, but I'm interested in business development. I have a couple questions about that if you have time.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you first realized, okay, we can make e-bikes, we can get them done from top to bottom, and you started selling them, how did you take it to the next level to get them into enough stores where you could support a sales staff, you could support a manufacturing staff? Like, did you have to go seek financing? Did you self-finance? Like, how did you go
This
from
is the best part of the story, actually.
point A to point B?
So I think one of the most fun, parts of our story that we love to recount is how we started. And I know every company is a little bit different. Some companies are built around tremendous infrastructure and financing, and others have to start with the sales. And we were the latter, for better or worse. Yoni came out to the U.S. That first trip when we had our samples, and we met in California, and for 2 weeks we were up and down the coast of California, knocking on doors, working with these independent bike dealers and other some influencers and some content and some product review companies, and just really grassroots level. We hustled hard, and that hasn't actually stopped at all.
We still hustle.
The motor that
It's still
turns
about
within Yoni and
hustling.
I, we both have this entrepreneurial spirit to go. And it's been a fun ride, but it's for us. It started with sales.
So
we
you
had to go out
created the
there.
demand before the supply, before the
100%.
financing.
Well, we had some supply, so we did import, up maybe $750,000 of goods here, and that was like our first seed money, right? That I put into the company, and then when we had that in the U.S., then we really needed to hustle because what do you do with $700,000 of bikes? If you don't hustle, like they're just going to sit there. So we did. And
So you just had them in a
we had them,
warehouse in California,
we rented
and
it
you're
like
like,
a 3PL,
we got to sell
like a
these.
third-party
Third-party
logistics center.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't like, okay, place your order and like we'll fulfill based on the orders. Like we took risk, but we did not go into debt for years. Really, we didn't carry any debt. So, bootstrapped everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And then as we got bigger, and we wanted to grow, exponentially, so then we needed to take on a financing partner, but that even that didn't really last. Like we self-finance, we got rid of that, and right now we're completely, on our own and expanding.
So you're able to just reinvest your profits back in to
Yeah.
meet the growth and the demand.
We reinvested the profits back. We built the company up.
The truth is, there were times I think that we thought about doing it differently, and I think there were times where it was very trendy. Some of our competitors brought, some big money, into their companies, into the industry, hundreds of millions of dollars, and not that we didn't want to do that. Everything seemed so fast, and during COVID, as we knew we were already in this growth industry, but it was being accelerated, almost in an unhealthy way. Definitely an unhealthy way.
Yeah, no, definitely it's unhealthy.
And with the finance partners alongside it, on some level, we kind of put our heads down and focused on getting more inventory and more, more product, and ended up not bringing in, outside money. And I think today we're grateful for that. Although it's at times been challenging. We've had to bootstrap, and it's called bootstrap.
I think that's the biggest question for business owners. I attended this Goldman Sachs small business, and it was like all about getting the financing for big growth.
Right.
And to me, if you get that giant paycheck in the beginning, the growing pains of learning about the market are not going to be as evident and enable you to self-correct fast enough if you've
Correct.
got just like this big staff of
You
people
brush-
and all this overhead.
Yeah, you brush so many mistakes under the carpet. I could tell you, like, the financial pressure that puts on, it seems like really exciting in the beginning, but anybody that I know, and looking at companies on the outside that have gotten big checks, you either make it or you very quickly fail, because there's a massive amount of pressure put on top of you. And they also put shackles on you. They really handcuff you, and they tell you, okay, this is the goals that you have to meet. This is what you have to do. And if you're not hitting that, then like you're out. So like as a founder, I could definitely recommend to all business owners and founders, if you want to keep control of your company, and if you want to actually have a healthy company, run it smart, run it, financially sound, make sure that you're making the right moves and you're staying profitable. And if you just kind of expect this savior to come in and invest $100 million in your company and like you're going to be this big thing, like it sounds exciting, and I definitely, the younger version of myself would have been really happy if that would have happened. But looking back, I think I'm happy that we didn't do that at that time, and we grew incrementally. Ups and downs. Definitely had our downs. Definitely made mistakes along the way. But I think it's a smart move. I think it's a smart way to run a business.
So at some point, do you think you'll have investors to accommodate your growth, or do you want to just keep it all private?
It's kind of up in the air, as a question, based on the stage that you're in. I believe very strongly you have to make the decisions based on the here and now. Like, you have to be not dreaming, you have to be planning, but you also have to live in the present.
To my earlier point, I think that it's all about the environment, and the environment is a much more healthy environment, I think, in this post-pandemic than during it, which was, I think, when, like I said before, a lot of our competitors and a lot of the industry growth was happening. I think at this point, we could definitely weigh those options, and we could see if with the right partner, with the right team, absolutely. I think we're open, and that's something that Yoni and I have always been. We've never stuck ourselves into one frame of mind or one path, saying that everything else is impossible. We've always been very open to change. We've been nimble on our feet, and I think that's what's allowed us to succeed for so many years.
Yeah. And when you talk about that time during the pandemic, you just saw tons of competitors saturate the market, investing millions upon millions, and you guys were just sort of, no, we're going to chill. We're going to just slowly increase. Is that the difference?
I don't know that it was,
Not
it was so
exactly.
pretty.
Well, not chill, but just like maintain our growth at a more steady
Yeah.
level.
We had there were some competitors that came in. The first year or two really showed exponential growth. So everybody's like, "Oh, look, I'm growing. I'm the best. I'm amazing. This industry is amazing. It's never going to stop." You know, when everything goes up, everybody thinks it will go up forever. You know, Bitcoin tomorrow is going to be $1 million. You know, it's just nonstop, ever, forever. You know, that's just the mindset everybody has. But in reality, like we also made somewhat of a mistake at that time, thinking that the growth would continue to the same degree, and we beefed up our inventory, but we didn't sell out our company. That was a difference, you know. So there were some people that really did kind of sell out their company based on that, you know, time, and then they're like, okay, now I have $100 million, and now all of a sudden, also some of the manufacturers and some outside money was coming in and setting up new brands like every other day. After like the first 2 years and everything is going great, everyone's like, okay, I'm going to get into the e-bike industry. And like, what do? Oh, I, make refrigerators. Like, you know, like what the hell, you know, like, but everybody's looking for the next thing. So, we definitely had an up and a down, but we still stabilized and pulled out of it.
Yeah, I looked at some statistics before you guys came, the growth of the e-bike industry predictions. And I believe it's a $2.4 billion industry, and it's predicted to double in the next 5 years. Do you guys see that growth, going that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think like an 11% CAGR, maybe, like the annual growth rate is, so year over year, you can easily double in 5 years. I just think the demand, I think the amount of people that don't have e-bikes that should, is big enough to it makes perfect sense. Like it's not even like some of the predictions are just like based on numbers but not connected to reality. Like we're on the ground, we're boots on the ground. We're seeing how great the e-bike affects people. How the e-bike smile, we call it. You never see somebody riding an e-bike without that smile.
Yeah.
And so if there are lots of people that don't have them, then yes, the wheel will continue and it will double and triple.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all I got. You guys have anything else that you want aspiring entrepreneurs to know, especially who will choose to go into manufacturing? You think of any other advice or tips?
I mean, I have lots of thoughts. Obviously, I would say probably the biggest one when you're coming to a product is know your product well, invest in your product more than anything else. Don't pay attention to the noise around you. Just make an awesome product that people are going to come to, as opposed to just trying to like chase other people or pretend that you have a demand and go after that demand. Like, just make something that people will come. If you have, good water in the desert, like everyone's going to come, So just focus on that more tan anything else.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And enjoy what you do, enjoy the people you're around. We spend a lot of time together. This guy's a good guy.
Yeah.
We've had lots of good times together.
Yeah, seems like you have a good team.
We have a good team. We've assembled that and put a lot of effort into the culture at Magnum Bikes and making it an environment where people want to be. Just enjoy the people you work with and enjoy what you do. We spend a lot of time working, and as I say, there could be a lot worse things than working in the e-bike industry.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, and keep up the good work. Keep spreading the word.
Thank you.
Helping people and giving some insights into the businesses. We work a lot, and it's nice to be highlighted sometimes and recognized for the work that you put in.
Well, it's really cool what you guys have done. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, man.
All right. And thank you so much for watching. If you want to spread this with other friends, we encourage you to share, like, subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.